Okay, welcome to the Truth in Taxation hearing for the St. Louis Park School District, Independent School District 283. I think at this point I will pass it over to Sandy Saline to talk about, well, to give us a little presentation.
Okay, thank you. We're going to do a presentation that is required for school districts to do when before their final taxes are approved. It's a Truth in Taxation hearing, and this is payable for 2017 taxes, which is actually for the fiscal year 2018 revenue. And there are requirements in which we have to abide by in doing this hearing. And so the agenda of the hearing is we're going to show you some information on district budget, information, of course, on the proposed tax levy for taxes payable in 2017, as well as the ability for comments and questions from the viewing audience. And with that, I'm going to start with the district budgets, and these are the budgets for the current year that we're in fiscal year 2017. And since we have not proved our audit yet, I'm going to be using the revised budgets for fiscal year 16, as well as the fund balances that we had projected on our budget book. So looking at this, I'm just going to go through it real briefly. But looking at this, we have for fiscal year 2017, our proposed total general fund was a little over $60 million. Our school nutrition fund was close to $2 million. Community aid education fund was $6.8 million. We had a debt service fund revenue budget of $7.2 million. Technology levy of $2.0 million. With total revenue for the budgets for 2017 of a little over $78 million. And looking at the expenditure budgets, for the total general fund, which does include all of general fund, including capital and health and safety, as well as long-term, which is now long-term facility maintenance revenue, was $61.3 million. School nutrition at a little over $2 million. Community education at $6.7 million. Bond projects, which we're using reserve balance to pay for the rest of the bond projects, of $3.8 million. Debt service of $6.8 million. Technology levy of a little over $2 million, with a total expenditures of about $83 million. And like I said, this is unaudited projected fund balances at this point in time for 2016, which we will be having a presentation tonight at the board meeting of our actual audit numbers. But looking at the proposed fiscal year 2017 fund balance for general fund unreserved, a little over $9 million, assigned of $3.3 million. And we are required to have a non-spendable account for accounting practices of $224,000, a little over $224,000. We do have some restricted fund balances, one being for staff development of $108 million. Health and safety, we did have a projection of a overspending of $238,000, but I think we will find out with the audit that will be cleaned up. Operating capital of $4.3 million, and basic skills, bringing it down to a little over $41,000, for the total general fund being $16,748,000. Mm-hmm.
Sandy? So I just want to clarify, you have, so 3.2 is assigned, so it's restricted. The rest is unassigned general fund balance, about $6 million or whatever. What then is, could you clarify non-spendable?
Oh, non-spendable, it's an accounting requirement that we have to actually record our prepaids for the year. So it's accounting of everything that we prepay for the current year into the next year. We have to actually put a fund balance in.
Oh, like, well, what would we prepay? Like some contract?
Like let's say
insurance.
if we get it early, we'll prepay that. I mean, there are a few things that we end up prepaying.
Is that, I don't recall seeing that.
Yeah, that's been
before.
for a few years
Has
now.
It been? Oh,
yeah.
geez. All right.
And it usually stays around that $150,000 to $200,000. We usually have some expenditures that we are required to prepay because of the vendors needing it at this particular time.
And then, because our general fund expenditures exceeded our revenue by just a little, this fund balance is projected to then go down a little. Our general unassigned will go down? Is
Right.
that- Okay.
Right. Okay. And then looking at the restricted, like I said, I went through the restricted, giving a total for the general fund of about 17 million. Food service, a little over 200,000 is anticipated. Community education, 1.1 million. Debt service, 1.4 million. Technology and bond projects of 288,000, and we are anticipating to spend down our bond projects by 2017. And then I'm going to go through some graphs that show the visuals of what our budgets in the particular funds. This one is the revenue budgets, which includes our capital. And the property, or the state aids consist of most of the funding sources that comes for our general fund at 65.9%. Our property taxes being the next in line, they are at 28.1% of our revenue. Federal grants come in the next in line at 3.8%, and other, which includes gate fees or other fees that we may charge, is 2.2%. And our general fund expenditures are as follows, and I'll go through them real briefly, maybe some highlights of some of the bigger ones. Of course, the biggest expenditure, and this includes capital as well, is our general instruction at 51.7%. Our special ed instruction is at 15.7%. Pupil support is at 7.9%. Site and buildings comes in at 7.2%. Instructional support comes in at 4.9%. And administration comes in at 4.2%, as well as district support. And then there's some smaller types of expenditures that you can view that amount to the rest of it. And school nutrition, they have offsetting expenditures of their revenue sources. So I'm just going to go through the revenue sources and what that equates to. Most of their revenue source comes from federal sources and local meal sales. Federal sources come in at 48.1%, and local meal sales come in at 46%. State sources are at 5.9%.
Is the federal portion of that predominantly subsidized lunching, or is it something
We get
else?
reimbursed claims.
Okay, but that's most of that 48%.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
There's also some, like, they provide some type of
Commodities.
foods and things, yeah?
Mhm, yeah,
Do
it's
we get
commodities.
any of that, or is
Yes.
that not? Okay.
Yes, that's included in there as well,
Oh, that's included as a,
as a revenue source.
so you put
It's a revenue and expense.
you put a dollar value then on the, because they actually give you the beef, don't you?
Right, right. There's a dollar value, and basically it ends up being a wash at the end of the year. Whatever we get, we use, and yeah. Okay, community service fund. The majority of that is going to be sales and other. This is saying federal aids. This is not right. But property taxes amounts to $941,000, which is at 16.1%. State aids amounts to $1.3 million, which amounts to the 60.4%. So the federal aids is not supposed to be there. The state aids takes its place. Tuition and fees and other local amounts to the rest of it, which is the majority of the 60.4. Other is 8.9, which is other local sources. Next, I'm going to come to the proposed property taxes for payable 2017. And back in September, we had given you a proposal of the property taxes based on preliminary numbers. And the state has since then done whatever corrections they needed to make to our preliminary levy certification. There was a few changes, which I will show you in a few minutes, but this is something that I provide to you every year. This shows, and it really hasn't, and it hasn't changed at all, actually, compared to what we have in the prior years where voter approved versus non-voter approved. The majority of our taxes comes from voter approved at 70%. There is 30% non-voter approved, which is state driven calculations in which is given to us as a district for another revenue source. And so these are categorical levies that we can use for particular purposes. This may be hard to see, but hopefully the viewing audience can see it. I'm going to go through a few of these. I know a lot of these haven't changed since the preliminary levy, but one that did change, the operating referendum, there was some prior year adjustments, and actually it gave us a negative or a decrease in our levy. We had some adjustments to enrollment, but then we had some adjustments to enrollment for our current year referendum, which kind of offset most of it. Location equity, because of the increases in enrollment for the current year, we also had some adjustment there, as well as capital projects levy. That is based on net tax capacity, and our net tax capacity has been increasing, so that levy increases with that increase in the net tax capacity. Operating capital, because of the way the calculation is set up, we had an increase in enrollment, which actually increases our aid portion versus our levy portion. So the way that calculation worked, it actually decreased our levy portion, but our aid portion increased. We did have a judgment levy in the prior tax year, which we won't have again this year, so there was a decrease there. The health and safety, that was a cleanup for the current year for $93,000. We don't expect to have any more changes or any more that comes through health and safety, because that is now being replaced by the long-term facility revenue, which we will show an increase of $537,000 there. That is actually taking place of the health and safety levy, as well as the deferred maintenance levy, and adding a little bit more for maintenance for our buildings. The building lease, that really hasn't changed. There will be some probably adjustments that occur in the following year. There's tax increment financing. That is really something that flows through the district's levy certification, but it really is a city payment back of the tax increment financing to the taxpayers. We're just used as a mechanism, so it really doesn't affect us as far as our revenue source being affected. We did have some abatements, which there was some advanced abatements, which is offsetting our current year abatements. So all in all, of the $18,232,000 general fund proposed levy taxes, it's going to decrease by a 0.88%. So it's going to pretty much remain stable from the prior year. Community ed is pretty much remaining stable. There was a slight decrease of $13,000 of 1.38%, but they pretty much remain stable for the current year. The decreases really happened in the abatements again. The debt service, there was a slight decrease of 5.24%. We had some decreases in our debt service levy as well as our debt service excess. There was a decrease in our post-employment benefit bonds, which we had refunded, so that's reflected in there, and some other decreases in the payments that have occurred through the natural payment process in some of our bonds. as well as our advanced abatement again, came in lower, so that brought that levy down considerably. OPEB bonds, there's the OPEB bond at $53,000 that it decreased at 6.32%. So the grand total for payable 2017 is $26,161,000. A total decrease of $567,396, which is 2.12% of our taxes comparable to the prior year. And with that, unless there's any more questions and comments, that's all I have.
Any additional questions from the board? All right. Thank you, Sandy.